government officials insist that this...
Welcome to the ThePIOGuy podcast. My name is Todd Harmison, and I focus on the tips, tidbits, and tricks public information officers will need to be successful in the field of crisis communications. Be sure to check out my website, www.ThePIOGuy.com, for more regular PIO blogs and other podcast messages. I invite you to sit back, take notes, and let's dive into PIO 101. Hello and welcome back. My name's Todd Harmison, and this is another episode of The PIO Guy. So this week, I was talking to some other first responders, and we were discussing what things keep you awake at night. And this chief was talking about different disasters and different incidents in his community. And it got me to thinking that as a public information officer, what things keep me awake at night? And when you sit back and you think about all of the threats that are in a community that we know are potential threats, it made me think about, what am I doing? What have I been doing all this time to be prepared for the what if? And honestly, what if probably not the right thing to say. It's the, what am I doing to prepare for when? Because it's going to happen. Things will happen in your jurisdiction, whether you're a small community like the area that I'm in, or whether you're a major metropolitan district. And what I mean by that is, think about the crises that have occurred in the history of your community. Google those crises. If it happened once, it could happen again. So you think about it, you say, okay, Indianapolis, Indiana, what threats are out there for this metropolitan area? One that comes to mind right away is tornadoes. Have we had tornadoes? Absolutely. I responded to Pendleton, Indiana, one Memorial Day weekend when a tornado went right through the center of Pendleton. You know what else? Major floods. We've closed highways. We've had communities impacted, homes devastated by major floods along the White River and creeks and other waterways in the community. What else? Major structure fires. In my particular area that I work, we have a couple state highways that pass through our community, and then we also have the interstate that passes through. So with that interstate thoroughfare between, Michigan all the way down into Mexico and or to the south, that brings a whole transportation response there for hazardous materials. And it made me think of a crisis communications plan for my agency and developing what would we do as an agency to communicate once we've identified potential threats. And I just went through really the natural disasters, but you have technological disasters, whether it's a cyber attack or whether it's some sort of infrastructure, whether it's electrical grid shut down, whether it's intentional or accidental. You also have man-made incidents. Could be acts of terrorism or domestic-related issues in your community. You could have simple crime. These acts of mass shootings that have occurred. Sometimes those begin as a domestic dispute or some sort of disagreement that then carries over to a park or to a mall or to an area that's inhabited by, several people. And for whatever reason, the suspect decides to make this the ultimate sacrifice and the ultimate crime by killing multiple people or trying to kill them. So we have to identify the potential crises in your community. And I encourage you, don't just think of the things that could happen, or the things that have happened, I should say. Think about the things that could happen. Google is your friend. I mentioned that at the very beginning. Go in and Google disasters of your community. See what has happened over the years. That will help you pave a roadmap to what could happen in the future. Next, once we identify these potential crises, we need to define the roles and the responsibilities of the public information officer for those specific events, for your agency. What are you allowed to disseminate or to say to the public without getting your supervisor's approval? I posted a blog earlier in the week, and this one actually I think was 2 weeks ago, but in there I said, you're responding to an incident, the media is going to start calling, and if you do not have the answers and you do not know the information, maybe the right thing is not to answer the phone right away. Or if you are not given the latitude by your superior to start speaking to the media without getting their clearance, don't answer the phone. Oh, and this particular media person, wrote back, and I appreciate his comment. I really do. The internet's a two-way dialogue, and everyone has their opinion, but this media person said, well, if you're not able to answer the phone all the time and give the media the information they need, or you don't have the latitude from your superior to answer without getting their approval, then you shouldn't be a public information officer. And I disagree with that. There are public information officers that are new to the profession that have not worked up to the point that the superiors, the chiefs and the deputy chiefs or the elected officials feel comfortable with giving every public information officer carte blanche approval to just start speaking on an incident without their approval. And I think that's realistic. Now, in my particular case, if it's what I call a normal response, structure fires and local criminal activity in our community and the news media calls, I do speak on it. I've developed that approval with my chief, and that I have that latitude to be able to do so. But if it's an incident that is not something normal, for example, if we were to have a homicide, that is not something that I would just instantly get ready to do a press briefing on without speaking to my superiors about that. And here's what information I think we should be putting out to the public, and get their approval on that. So defining the roles and the responsibilities of the public information officer is very important. And that rolls into the third bullet of establishing communication protocols. Who is going to be responsible to put out the information? When will it be put out? What methods will you use to put it out? Will it be through a mass notification system that your jurisdiction purchases? Will you work with your local emergency management to do IPAWs? Or will you use social media? Maybe it's a combination of all of those. But at some point, when you're talking about being prepared in your jurisdiction, we need to document these protocols so it's in place. The next thing is developing key messages. It is very important, and I have done this. I have stored on the cloud evacuation messages, shelter-in-place messages, information about weather, messages that are already pre-scripted, that all I have to do is go copy, paste, and then fill in the blanks. For example, if it's a shelter-in-place, I can say, attention residents of Chesterfield, Indiana, if you live north of this area, east of this area, or whatever directions that I need to say, we're instructing you to shelter in place, stay indoors. And then I will list out a few bullet points that are important for individuals to know, what does shelter in place mean? Not everyone knows that, so I've already pre-scripted what those bullet items are, and then I can put that message out quickly. to the public. That's very important when, especially to a newer public information officer, when you have these out of the ordinary incidents occur, you're going to be frazzled a little bit. You're going to be tested to your skill to be able to get the right information to the right people at the right time. Do yourself a favor and have those pre-scripted messages that you can go get, fill in the blank. Yes, maybe you have to massage the message just a little bit. Another message that I have written, that I have stored, that I pray to God I never have to use, but I have a line of duty death press release already written, because I know if something happens on my department, mentally I am going to be stressed. That is one of my brothers, one of my sisters that something happened to. But I owe it to the community, I owe it to my department, to that officer's family, that we have something already prepared. And I can fill in the blanks, and I have the skeleton of the message already written. And I think that is so important to have. Even in my case, 20-some years public information officer, there are some incidents that are going to occur. God willing, I hope they never do. But if they do, it will frazzle even myself. And I want to be prepared for that. Once you have identified the crises, identified the roles and responsibilities, you put together your communication protocols, and you've started developing some of these key messages, it's always good to have some graphics ready to go. I talked about this in a previous podcast, is having pre-scripted information and graphics already queued up and ready. Have maps of your community. Have materials about your community, the demographics of your community, your chief, your deputy chiefs. Have those materials already written that you can draw upon if you need for an incident. Okay? The next thing then is train your employees. This is very important. You need to work with the members of your department or your company and train the employees as to what the crisis communications plan is. Now think about that. Does a patrolman, or does a firefighter, or does a factory worker in your company, do they care what the crisis communications plan is? No, they don't. That's what they will tell you. That is just the world we live in. Okay? They're going to laugh and they're going to be like, oh yeah, we got to go to Todd's training today. He's going to tell us about crisis communications. I know what crisis communications is. I key up my radio and I tell dispatch what I need and they get it for me. That's a patrolman. That's a firefighter. But in the back of their mind, when you explain to them that you already have a plan written out, here's who's going to speak when these events occur, and this is the information that you're going to put out to the public. Some of them start to realize, this affects my family. Because if there is a tornado that strikes my community, I'm going to be telling even the family members of our staff, this is what's happening. This is what our department is doing. The officers that were working at the time of the tornado are safe. They are okay. They are working, responding to calls. They are rescuing people. So the loved ones at home know, my husband was working as a police officer when that tornado hit, and I just saw the press release that came out that said our officers are safe. That gives the family members reassurance. Not only the public, but the family members, those closest to us. So we have to train the employees. Let the employees know that if they get contacted by media, if they encounter media when they're on scene, what should your officers do? Some departments, officers are allowed to acknowledge the media and tell them this is what we're here for, and then refer the media to the public. Some agencies, I don't agree with it, but they just tell the media, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to speak to you. Well, that's not a good answer. But that's what some departments say. I would encourage when you train your employees that when they do encounter the media, they acknowledge the media cordially, shake their hand, welcome them, thank them for being there to cover this story, and let them know that you're going to reach out to the public information officer to get direction for the media. You know, so you're a police officer and you're directing traffic at this homicide scene or tornado, whatever it is, the media comes up to you, you know, and you're out there, shake their hand. Hi there. Hey, thanks for coming. I appreciate you covering this story. Let me make contact with the public information officer. I'll find out where he or she would like you to be. Maybe he will even come to this intersection to meet with you to give you an update on the story. And I promise you, the media is going to say thank you because they're trying to get their story. But we have to tell our employees what to say, what to do, how to handle the media. I've said it many times over the course of the past several months. The media is there to work with us. They are there to communicate our message to the public and help us amplify the message that we want to get out there to the public. We have to enable them, give them the tools. The next thing is conduct drills. Do tabletop exercises amongst your department. Work out different scenarios with your members of the department, whether it's fire, EMS, your company that you work for. Do drills. I always say tabletop exercises are wonderful because nobody can go wrong. You can't do something wrong. Okay? If you make a mistake, it's a learning curve. It's a learning opportunity. You're not going to kill anyone. You're not going to injure anybody. It is a mistake that you've made that you're learning from. And that's what tabletop exercises are so great for. In a future podcast, I'll talk about tabletop exercises and how beneficial they can be for public information officers. But that's one of the things that you need to think of when you're working on your crisis communications plan and you're pre-planning these incidents in your community. Even if it's just you or members of your PIO team, throw out a scenario. Tell them we've had a EF2 tornado that struck this community on Monday morning at 11:30 a.m. You know, and then have your PIOs start talking about what messages do we need to get out? What instructions do we need to say to the public? When the incident's over and the response is over, we've rescued all the people, we've put out the fires, we've arrested the people that need to be arrested, whatever the situation is, public information continues on. There's always the recovery piece of any incident. And during that recovery, we're getting back to normalcy. Normalcy could be 2 hours out. It could be 24 hours. It could be 7 days. There's incidents I know when we had the tornado in Pendleton, a year later, they were still talking about recovery. So public information doesn't just stop as soon as the rescue's over, the fire's out, the suspect is arrested. There's still information that needs to be passed on to the public. So when you make your tabletop exercise and you start working through these things, think in your mind as the leader, think about other messages after the floodwaters go down. What things a week later might we still want to be telling people? You know, do they still need to boil their water? Are there sanitation risks? Are there risks for mold in their home? Or, you know, those types of health hazards? What about FEMA, financial assistance and flood insurance and things like that? What about talking about home improvement scam artists that will come in? Scammers will flock your community when a disaster strikes because they want to come in and they want to make money off of a tragedy. Tell people, hey, we'll fix your house. Give us 50% down right now, and we'll be back to fix it later. No, 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 no. We have to educate the public not to fall for those scams. And after you've done all of this, the most important piece to any public information officer, any exercise person, any planner, anyone in emergency services, is we have to review and we have to update our plans. Look at what went right, what went wrong. If you went through a tabletop exercise and you planned out your crisis plan and everything was perfect and rosy and nobody made a mistake, nobody had a learning opportunity from it, then you missed the opportunity and you did not do a good job because you have failed. And what I mean by that is we should learn from every incident. Tabletop exercise, full-scale exercise, or real-life incident, we should learn from things that we did. Maybe we didn't do something wrong, but maybe we could have done something better. Maybe we could have got in front of the media sooner. Maybe we could have gotten more information out to the public. Remember our mantra, to get the right information to the right people at the right time. Maybe we only got half of the information to the public. Maybe the law enforcement side felt that the information you wanted to put was valuable to the investigation and they wouldn't let you put it out there. At the scene is not the time to argue about that. After the incident is the time to go to the detectives, go to the command staff, talk to the chiefs, and talk through, when we have this incident again, can we talk about the information that we put out? This is why I wanted to put that information out. This is what I think it could have done to help us. Because I'll tell you what, when you talk through incidents, when you talk through the good, the bad, and the ugly of a response or of a training exercise, you learn from it. Everyone at the table will learn something. Hey, let's say it. I'll say it right now, folks. If you are in your career and you attend these after-action meetings and you walk away and didn't learn something, it is time to retire. You are past the moment that your heart and that your mind is in the job. With that, I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. Pre-planning incidents, whether you're a one-person PIO or a multi-member team, think about what incidents can occur. Prepare for what messages you will want to put out. How will you put those messages out? Who on your team is going to do these messages? You just conducted your own tabletop exercise in your mind. If you were able to do that a couple times a year, monthly, you have made yourself a much more valuable asset as a public information officer and crisis communicator to the team. Be sure to check out my website, www.ThePIOGuy.com, for more tips, tidbits, and tricks to improve your crisis communication skills. Stay safe, stay informed, and stay engaged.